Police officers in the hospital.
Chaotic scene.
What's up, y'all? B-Boy Sambo here today, and today I'm going to
blow your mind
with this new updated tutorial on the Airflare. That's right, you heard it right. It's a 2.0 new Airflare tutorial here
for your brains right now.
So you might have seen my old tutorial I made a few years back. Good times, but now it's time to get serious. So before starting with the Airflare, you should know how to do these moves first. A power kick or monkey swing, spinning handstand, good flares, and the windmill. I have tutorials for these moves as well, so if you don't know how to do them, just check out my website or my YouTube channel. What I really recommend is for you to watch the spinning handstand tutorial, because it's gonna give you a lot of good information on like leg positioning and stuff. So if you know how to do these moves, I have to explain the numbering of the hands really quick. This will help me explain you a lot of things while we're going through this tutorial. So the first hand we're going to place on the floor is actually just our first hand. Then we have our second hand. And then, of course, we have our third hand, which is going to be the one we land on after our jump. Take a moment to figure out which hand is which, because I'm going to use this a lot throughout this tutorial. I'm going to say things like your second hand, and then your first hand, and stuff like that. And you should actually already know in advance which hand is which. So the first thing we're gonna do is get in the vibe with some pikes. What we call a pike freeze is basically just like a one handstand facing up. Meanwhile, the hips are folded toward you. So it goes without saying that if you can do good pikes, you'll probably pick up Airflares a lot faster. To get into these pikes, we're going to perform the entrance of a cartwheel. Stop before getting halfway. So as you can see, half a cartwheel, my legs are leaning towards me, and my chest is facing up. Do this both sides and make sure that you watch the leg work. Right leg first when I go to my left hand, and left leg first when I pike on my right hand. This exercise is not just a good exercise for like pre-Airflare, but it's also like a really good warm-up.
So get warmed up.
The hardest part of the Airflare is the jump from the second hand to the third hand. So this is the first thing that I am going to help you out with. Before jumping like a madman and hurting yourself, you have to learn how to walk over. So this first exercise is a cartwheel from our second hand to our third hand. Don't just randomly do a cartwheel. Make sure you are well coordinated and know what you're doing with your hands right now. After a few times, you should start to feel comfortable enough so you can actually walk over a little deeper. If that's the case, try and cartwheel behind your head so you can start to use more shoulder flexibility. This might be really scary at first, but you will get used to it soon if you're not a quitter. So once you can kind of walk over in a cartwheel, we're going to add the power kick or monkey swing to the beginning. So that means now we can finally start from our first hand and not from the cartwheel technique. Keep your hips really, really high. And what you want to do is almost like a spinning handstand. But don't forget, now we're adding the walkover we have just practiced from hand 2 to hand 3. So what we're actually doing right now is we're actually programming our muscle memory for that third step. You want to actually show your body that after that jump, when you're actually going to land, that's the position you actually want to be in. The landing is the most important part of the Airflare. No good landing, then no 2 Airflares, no combos, nothing, crashes. So what you want to do now is keep that walkover Airflare as high as possible to ensure that landing.
How do I know if it's a good landing?
Everything is comfort. If you can walk over and actually manage to stay there and feel comfortable, and I'm not talking about like a full 30 seconds, but if you manage to like walk over and like manage to get on your feet nice and clean, that shows comfort. And that's when you're in the right direction. If you walk over, panic, stress, crash, fall, hurt your arm in some sort, then you just gotta go back to the other steps. Make sure while you're doing this whole process that you keep your legs open and stretched at all times. If you make it to step 3, but you feel your legs are in special shapes, then it might be a sign that you have to work on your flexibility. Although I do have this one exercise you could do, is tapping your feet after making the walkover. This is a really good exercise to try and keep your legs nicely open and stretched if you have this problem. So let us just refresh everything because we have a lot of stuff going on here. We have a lot of information and a lot of details. Just missing out on one of these details could have dramatic impacts on you and your Airflare relationship. So here we go. Power kick, first hand. Second hand, keep your legs open. Walk over, nice and high. Stable landing on third hand. And just get out of there nice and clean. So if this is all good, then you, my friend, are on the right track. If this is still hard for you, then it's best for you to invest in whatever is missing before you start moving on. So before I'm gonna tell you to start jumping from one hand to the other, we're gonna do some exercises for you to get more comfortable within the Airflare position. You wanna have fun with the move and you wanna try and expand your possibilities. So I have this next exercise for you to try out. Walk over to a windmill. Walk over to a head spin. Walk over to a 90. And walk over to a 2000. So now after a lot of practice, you should feel pretty comfortable. And only at this point are you ready to jump from your second hand to your third hand. So now, instead of walking over from your second hand to your third hand, we are going to pull our legs in and create a small jump or pump that will allow your body to hop during this transition. At this point, keep in mind that we are still performing a very high Airflare. And also don't forget that we're actually trying to ensure that landing on hand 3. The lower you start throwing that Airflare, the more unstable your landing is gonna be. So keep it as high as you can. If you start doing this, then you're really gonna start wasting your time. So if this actually starts to work, you want to repeat that last combo that we did with the walkover, but this time with the hop. Now be smart. Take your time and think about all the details. Think about your hands, your hips, and of course your legs. So if you managed to get this far already, you're only a few parsecs away from doing multiple Airflares. What we're going to do now is perform a very high Airflare. High enough to manage the transition to a second Airflare by passing through a handstand. This will almost feel like the transition to a 90, but instead of doing that 90, you're going to re-perform a second Airflare. For this, you need to stay calm and really stay focused. Any minor mistake will affect your comfort and lead to failure. The good thing is that you can actually train this with the simple walkover technique that we used earlier. Even though you feel really tired, this is still actually really manageable. If you feel fit, I would just recommend you to do it with the hops. What I actually recommend is for you to do both. Try doing exactly the same thing with the third Airflare, the fourth Airflare, and so on and so on and so on. You want to keep that Airflare as high as possible so you always make the next one. And now we get to a point where I get a lot of questions. How do I get my Airflare lower?
Because I'm always doing these high Airflares and I'm sick and tired of these high Airflares.
How do you actually get these high Airflares into low Airflares? That's a really good question, and I have the answer. So a lot of Airflares at this stage is what I call a handstand Airflare. Not the prettiest Airflare out there, but there is a really good exercise for this problem. The exercise is going back to one of our previous steps and focusing on the Airflare to windmill combo. Let's take the highest level Airflare to windmill you can do. This should be 100% safe and executable. Now let's try the lowest level we can do and really try and fly. This feels impossible to get into the windmill, right? So what we have to do now is slowly and consistently build the bridge between these two levels of airflares. By patiently going lower and lower while looking for that entry to the windmill, you can create more and more opening in your arms and shoulders. This method will give you quick results if you follow the steps carefully and train consistently. Try the walkover and jump transitions on your elbows after knowing how to do them on your hands. It's almost the same, so usually it moves pretty fast. If you do this, you will learn the elbow airflare from this tutorial. You kind of get it for free. While training multiple airflares, you want to use the Jedi mind trick, especially if you get blocked between 3 and 5 airflares. The Jedi mind trick is simple. You have to convince yourself one way or another that every airflare you are doing is actually the first one. By counting the number of airflares you so desperately want, you are completely losing focus. Convincing yourself that every airflare is the first airflare will actually help keep your body in the right spot, because this is usually the issue at this point. So remember, second airflare, number 2, is 1. Third airflare, number 3, is still 1. 4 is 1. 5 is 1. So if you see me on the street and you walk up to me and you tell me
3 is 1.
then I will know you have watched this tutorial and I deeply respect your wisdom. How long does it take? Well, that depends, because it differences from person to person and also the number of hours you spend practicing it. I have seen people learn multiple airflares in less than a year, but then I have seen people do less airflares in longer than 5 years. For me personally, I learned my airflares in over 6 or 7 years time. I spent a lot of time looking for these techniques because way back, nobody could really explain how to do them. So you better show some support and some love for me breaking down all these steps for you guys and making sure that you can learn this airflare as fast as you can. So I hope you guys learned a lot from this tutorial. Don't forget to show this to your friends. And if you teach kids, show them this video. It's gonna help you a lot. For many other tutorials, just go and visit my website or just check out my YouTube channel for new videos and updates. Now let me just add this, that I absolutely don't care about likes or subscribers or thumbs up or the whole shebang.
But
YouTube does have me by the balls, because the more you guys react to all these videos, the more exposure it gets. So if you want to help me out, you know, from brother to brother, from b-boy to b-boy,
You know,
from good guy to good guy, you know, you just hit them random comments like
X, Y, Y, Z.
enter and then more, and then just hit some of those comments so we can get this video to the top, so we can get rid of all those crappy other tutorials there are out there.
alright?
Never quit, keep training, peace, and I'll see you in like 1 minute on my next tutorial. Peace.